Okay, with us for this one, we are joined from Miami by the Athletics' Tom Harris, who is also stateside for the Copa America. And we're also here with our Brazilian football journalist, Renato Senise, as well. Renato, let's start with you. You know, Brazil, the big team in South America. Copa America is upon us. How are confidence levels ahead of the start of the Copa when it comes to Brazil?
I don't think Brazilian people are confident. I think Brazilian people are excited because finally we have like a fresh team with youngsters. Finally, we don't have Neymar. So it's not everything about Neymar. I'm not saying that Neymar is a terrible player. It's the opposite. But it's been like 10 years with only Neymar. Now we have Vini Júnior. Now we have Rodrigo. Now we have Endrick, Rafinha. And we have a new manager after like a terrible year for Brazil. Now the team looks solid. So not to the level of being confident, but to the level of being excited, I think Brazilian people are.
Yeah, I mean, the Neymar thing is interesting because we're also missing Casemiro, Thiago Silva, of course, a stalwart of Brazilian football for so many years. Is that actually, do you see this more as a collective than just pass to Neymar hoping that he will save the day if Brazil isn't playing well?
Yes, that's exactly why people in Brazil are so excited, because finally we have a team. We have I talked about the upfront players, but we have Bruno Guimarães, we have Paqueta, we have João Gomes in the midfield, even in the defensive. Like we have Marquinhos, an experienced player, but we have Beraldo from PSG, Gabriel Magalhães from Arsenal. So young people coming, and lately Brazil had so many tough defeats. So when you look to Thiago Silva, you always remember the defeats. It's not his fault, of course, but now you have young players that are ready to win something.
I like that. Tom, I guess, who in this Brazilian squad, we mentioned a few names so far, do you expect to come to the fore in this tournament? I mean, Rodrigo, Vinicius have just come off winning the Champions League and La Liga, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Vinicius is that he's actually only got 3 goals and 30 caps for the Brazilian national team. And there are quite a lot of people who are not, thinking that he should be starting these games, particularly because there is a lot of talent behind him on the wing. We're looking at Savio for Girona, who's just had an amazing season. Obviously, Rodrigo as well. And I think Rodrigo, to be honest, is the favourite up front just because of how kind of versatile he is. He's been playing off the right all season for Real Madrid to allow Vinicius to play on the left. When he did play on the left against Manchester City in the first leg of that Champions League game, he looked absolutely brilliant. He's played down the middle for Brazil to allow Rafinha and Vinicius to play. So I think, a lot of people really like him and think that he could be kind of a star player for them because he's just so versatile and he gets the job done for Brazil. But yeah, other than that, I think the midfield, as Renato mentioned, is really interesting because Dorival kind of likes a 4-3-3, and those 3 midfielders are all very, very destructive defensive players. But, particularly with João Gomes coming in, who's done brilliantly for Wolves this season. But they also have that ability in Paqueta and in Guimarães to turn kind of defence into attack really, really quickly. And I think that's what we're going to see quite a bit from Brazil this tournament.
Yeah, there's a player that was also sort of tickling my ears. Is Savio, looking set to join Manchester City from Troyes. Is part of that sort of City football group, and we've obviously featured him on the radar, which is looking at I think over 50 players through the Copa America, which readers should be keeping their eyes on. What do we know about him?
Yeah, he's brilliant. I mean, I've been watching Girona all season and he's just been unbelievable because he kind of came in and obviously people knew he was an exciting talent, but the way he's just taken La Liga by storm, he's such a positive dribbler. The amount of times you'll kind of see him just tearing through the middle of the pitch, just as if, people chasing him, trying to keep up with him, they just can't. He's kind of a left-footed left winger, which is quite interesting as well. He can kind of dart to the byline and kind of chip those crosses into the back post. He can come into the middle. He can play on the right as well. He's really exciting. And as I mentioned, obviously Vinicius Júnior is one of the best players in the world. But if it doesn't quite click for him, as it hasn't done recently for Brazil, I think Savio is a more than capable replacement who can freshen things up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Renato, I'm just thinking about this new coach because, Brazil have gone through a few of them very recently. And we mentioned Dorival Júnior earlier. How do the fans feel about this guy, the third man in charge since the Qatar World Cup?
You know that he's a manager that everyone likes. Like, he's the kind of manager the fans are okay with him. The players are okay with him because he's such a good person, such a calm guy in the pit side. Of course, he's not brilliant. Of course, he's not a genius like Guardiola or I don't know, not Carlo Ancelotti, as Brazilian people dream about.
Brazil wanted for a while,
so
right?
bad. But again, the Brazilian team was such a mess in the past year. We needed someone to go there and just do the basics, explore the quality of the players, and he's perfect for that. He's the kind of manager that he changes his tactics depending on the players he has. So he's not always like 4-4-3 or the 3 in the back. No, he's always changing. In every club he went, he changed the tactics. And I think it's important for a national team. Like, you have different quality of players. So he's good for that as well. So it's nice to have someone like this, like him, at this time in Brazil. We needed someone like him.
I tell you what, I don't know if there are any similarities. 62-year-old coach with young players. You didn't get Ancelotti, so you'll deal with him, right?
Yes, so great. Really, really. People in Brazil loved this idea because, come on, Carlo Ancelotti is so good with Brazilian players. Every Brazilian player he had, like, he made it better. Like Vinicius Júnior and Rodrigo now. Before that, we had Ronaldo, we had Kaká, we had even Alexandre Pato played well with Carlo Ancelotti. So it would be so good to have Carlo Ancelotti in Brazil. And we're talking about Brazil and the most winner manager ever. So it would be such a lovely thing to do, but not now, maybe in 2 years' time, I don't know.
All right, Thom, from Brazil's perspective, how have Brazil set up? We know of the attacking talent. We also know of this lovely midfield, and actually feels like there's quite a balance in this team in general. Look at Gabriel is also a Marquinhos in that centre-back position. And let's not forget Alisson in goal as well. How does this team set up going into competition, and how have they set up coming into this competition?
Well, yeah, as Renato alluded to, it has been a bit of a mess because before Dorival, there was Fernando Diniz, who is a bit of a tactical extremist in terms of what he wants his players to do. It's very confusing. He was juggling 2 jobs as well. He had the Fluminense job while he was trying to manage a Brazil national team, and it just really didn't work. Dorival has come in, and the thing that strikes me is that he's managed 12 of the current top 20 teams in Brazil in the top flight. So he's got so much experience. He's worked with a lot of players. And as Renato says, he changes for the group that he's got. And I think he's realised here with this Brazil side that he's got 3 attackers, whoever he chooses, Rodrigo, Vinicius Júnior, Endrick, who I'm sure we'll talk about later on in this podcast, who are really quick on the transition, can do things by themselves. I mean, we've seen with Real Madrid that Rodrigo and Vinicius can carry attacks all by themselves, really, just pick up the ball in their own half and run and run and run. He's made that midfield a bit more steely, a bit more defensively solid, and he's just kind of, it seems like he's kind of said to these players, you go and do your thing. We've got structure now. We didn't really have it under Diniz. It was a little bit confusing, but there's a basic structure in place, and he's given the players freedom to go and do what they can do. And I think with this Brazil side in the state that they're in is probably the most sensible thing.
Yeah, I mean, all that still sounds like Carlo Ancelotti to me, but I'm not saying anything, right? Renato, Brazil's performances ahead of this tournament. We saw them at Wembley, and Endrick comes in, does something special, as he likes to do. Drew against Spain as well. Has Dorival managed to bed in this system ahead of the tournament? Something that we now recognise, because we were talking about Roberto Martinez yesterday with Portugal, and they're still sort of experimenting because they've got so much talent. Is Brazil in the same place?
No, I think we have, it's clear the tactics right now. It's a 4-3-3. It's clear that Vini Júnior is in the left, that Rodrigo is playing everywhere in the attack. Maybe Rafinha, it depends on how he goes in the tournament. Maybe Endrick will join the place of Rafinha. Of course, it's not a ready team, it's not a squad that you see, oh my God, we know exactly how they play, but at least you know the plan, you know the idea. The problem, and it's something different for Dorival Júnior, the problem right now is the defense. Brazil conceded six goals in 4 matches, which is not normal for Brazil and not normal for Dorival Júnior. So for sure he'll try to, especially with the midfield, try to make the midfield help more the defense. But it's clear, the idea, it's clear what he wants. We're talking about a job that a work that is started in January, so it's quite recent, only 4 matches. But now he had 19 days of training, which is something rare for a national team as well. So he like the most important thing for him is to correct the defensive part of the team, and I think he will do it. So I know it's recent, I know it's still information, but it's a solid team already. You know the plan, you know the idea.
Yeah, and super quickly, does it help that, and as Tom said, that he's managed in Brazil for so long, the different personalities of Brazilian football, a particular style, I want to say je ne sais quoi, but, the Brazilian way,
Yeah, and it is, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's so rare that he managed so many different clubs, and you don't have fans that hate him or treat him like a betrayer. Not everybody likes him, everybody respects him, and he knows Brazilian players, he knows Brazilian football, he knows what he has to do, So I think it's positive for him for being the manager of so many different clubs in Brazil.
Well, one of the big talking points hanging over Brazil ahead of the tournament was whether or not West Ham's Lucas Paqueta would be able to participate due to being charged by the FA with alleged breaches of betting rules. Joining us now to shed more light on this is our football news reporter, Tom Burrows. Tom, thank you so much for joining us. Let's get into this, right? Where are we? Where are we with Paqueta and his availability following the FA's charges back in May? Charges that he has very much denied, I must add.
Yeah, so as you said, we know Lucas Paqueta was charged by the FA on May the 23rd with alleged breaches of their betting rules. He's accused of getting himself deliberately booked in 4 Premier League matches across 2 seasons. Now, as you just said, he insists he's innocent, and when the news first broke, he vowed to fight with every breath to clear my name. He had initially been given until June the 3rd to respond to the charges, but his lawyers have been granted more time by the FA. His case will be heard by an independent commission, but in terms of a timeline, that could take several months yet, meaning this could actually stretch into the start of the next Premier League season. Now, if he is found guilty by the commission, the FA could then push FIFA for a worldwide ban, which could have potentially very serious consequences for his career. It's also worth noting that he's been charged with 2 further breaches under the FA rule F3, which basically alleges that he failed to comply with the investigation. Now, in spite of that charge, he was cleared to play at Copa America 3 weeks ago, essentially on the grounds that he was innocent until proven guilty. And after the Brazilian Football Federation president, Renato Rodrigues, reached out to the FA Chief Executive Mark Bullingham to make sure there were no legal obstacles to Paqueta playing in the tournament.
Mm-hmm. Well, Renato, that's that verdict of things. But from a Brazilian perspective, what has the perception been of this case? Because I just realised Paqueta's Brazil's top scorer with 10 goals. I think he scored for the national team.
It's funny to say that in the beginning, people in Brazil didn't realize how dangerous this was, how serious this was. In the beginning, people, okay, maybe some breaches, some betting breaches, okay, maybe, 6 months of suspension, 1 year, maybe. But now people realize that he can actually be banned from football. If this is proved to be true, he can be banned. So people were in shock. In the beginning, he wasn't called up for the national team when the investigation started last year. But now they said, okay, there's no final result here. We don't know when the final result will happen. If he can play for the club, he can play for the national team as well. And this week, the Parliamentary Commission of Inquiry in the Manipulation of Games and Sport Betting in Brazil, that is is being held in the Federal Senate. They approved an invitation for Lucas Paqueta to talk about it, which is very serious as well. Of course, it's only an invitation. He can deny it. He's not obligated to go, but it's not so often that you'll see a football player, being called by a commission of inquiry on manipulation of games. So people now are starting to realize how serious this thing is, and let's see the results.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, it's no secret that, Manchester City were interested in Paqueta, for what he's done West Ham, but also I've just mentioned top scorer in the Brazil squad at this moment in time. You can really understand why, prior to these allegations and news of the FA's investigations, why he's hot on the lips of quite a few teams.
Yeah, and I think for this Brazil side in the Copa America is going to be very important because, as we were kind of mentioning before, he mixes that defensive tenacity with the ability to move forward. He's obviously very, very tricky. He loves a kind of flick. He can get out tight spaces. But I think we've seen in the Brazil friendlies under Dorival how important he is in terms of kind of floating those passes over to the front three to run onto. He's really, really good at that. And yeah, for a club side, he can kind of do the dirty work. He can sit back in a low block and can compete, but he can also kind of unlock a low block himself with his ability on the ball. So yeah, he's a big talent. He's going to be important for Brazil. And I think, a lot of people will be really, really interested to see how this case goes.
Renato, if he doesn't ever move on with this Brazilian squad, do Brazil have anyone waiting in the wings that's just like him, that can offer the same kind of impact to a game in the midfield?
No, there's no one in Brazil that has the same quality in the midfield as Lucas Paqueta. He's like a complete player, he's good on defending, he's good with the ball, his passing skills, like his vision of football. There's no one like him. I don't want to talk about him again, but Neymar could do this role. He was doing this role, but we're talking about Paqueta, 26 years old, Neymar, 32. Neymar always injured. So there's only Lucas Paqueta in this national team with this quality, and it would be like a huge, huge loss for Brazil if he's been banned.
Yeah, Tom Burrows, very quickly. I know you spoke to former Stratford Town defender Keenan Isaac, who was banned for 10 years for spot fixing in 2021. What did he have to say to you?
Yeah, I mean, as we've been saying, this is a potentially very serious case for Paqueta. Although he played for Brazil at Copa America, his career remains under a cloud. If he is found guilty, he could be banned for life, and that is a fear that is shared internally by senior figures at West Ham. Now, the worry for Paqueta, again, if he is found guilty, is when you look at similar cases. So, for example, Lincoln City's Bradley Wood was given a 6-year ban in 2018 for intentionally getting booked in 2 FA Cup matches. And then Keenan Isaac, you just mentioned, a non-league footballer who was playing for Stratford Town, was given a 10-year ban after he was ruled to have deliberately got himself booked in 1 FA Cup match as part of a betting scheme with friends. Now, I spoke to Keenan this week, and he was saying, again, if Paqueta is found guilty, well, hasn't a precedent now been set? I got 10 years for one charge. Aren't those the guidelines that should now be followed? However, the FA said each case is judged on its own merit, but it would be very interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, Tom, thanks for dipping in with all that info, and thanks you so much for your time as well, man. Renato, let's bring it back to Brazil now before we move on, because there's another interesting issue for Brazil ahead of the tournament, which centres around Girona's Jan Couto and his pink hair, which I know I've seen him have pink hair all season. And now for some reason, there's an issue with the Brazilian Federation and his pink hair. Can you explain a bit more?
Yeah, this case shows how messy are the Brazilian Confederation right now. It was a surprise for everyone when Jan Couto himself, he said that he had to change his color because it was something that the Confederation asked him to do. The Confederation asked him not to be so extravagant with his hair. And then after that, people came to know a list of restrictions that the Confederation sent to the Brazilian players. And there's it's like you're talking about like a school, a 10-year-old school, I don't know. Yeah. So you have to avoid flashy earrings. You have to use social networks soberly and discreetly without jokes. Do not wear extravagant necklaces. So things like this. Respect schedules, like not being behind, late for the bus exit. So they send this list to the players, and the players, of course, has to follow. It's something that I haven't seen before, or not in the past 20 years, maybe. So that's how it's working right now with the Brazilian national team.
Yeah, I thought it wasn't long ago where the entire team dyed their hair blonde, though. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah,
Richarlison and Neymar, everyone had the flamboyant blonde hair. Like, what has changed since then?
And even Ronaldo phenomenon with the Cascão here in the
exactly
2002
yes,
World
remember
Cup.
that exactly right.
People still wear this hair because of him, but now you have to be like, I don't understand this, but that's a new rule for the Brazilian national team.
Is it airing on, I guess, a much more conservative outlook of how they want to promote this Brazilian team in many respects, clean cut? I mean, a lot of these kids are young men who freely express themselves on and off the pitch. I mean, even look at what Vinicius Júnior has managed to do with his voice in Spain as well. I mean, he's become a global star and a global icon.
Yeah, but I think that's it. I think we have a conservative president right now who... his job was in risk. He was impeached and then came back. So I think he wants to make it as conservative as he can. Like no different things. Let's talk only about football. Forget about the rest. Forget about the color of your hair. Forget about your earrings. Forget about your clothes. So I think he wants only to keep it like, let's play football. But come on, with these restrictions. You're talking about Brazil. You're talking about, again, Vini Júnior, they are happy players, young players. Let them express themselves, but no, they can't.
Yeah, Tom, I'm just thinking, you remember the Romanian team when they all dyed their hair in the World Cup, which was an amazing moment, right? I think it was like a world first. I mean, Couto has had this pink hair all season at Girona. They didn't seem to have an issue with it, did they?
No, and he definitely didn't affect the way he played because he's been absolutely brilliant all season. Obviously this is a federational issue, and I'm not sure how this is going to be resolved. But with Brazil, particularly from the outside looking in, they're one of the most kind of expressive footballing nations in the world, and it would be a shame to see kind of that stifled, really.
All right. Well, let's move on because I know, Tom, you're in the US now for a month. Good luck with that time difference for the Athletic. With, which other nations in your eyes are we to keep a close eye on? Because we know Brazil, we know Argentina, the USA are going to be wanting to make an impact on Berhalter as well. But who else should we be keeping an eye on this in this Copa America?
Yeah, I think in terms of winning the trophy, personally, there are 4 teams that I think that can do it. Argentina and Brazil being 2 of them, and then Colombia coming into this tournament on an unbelievable run of form. I mean, they've not lost for over 2 years. They've just been amazing under Nestor Lorenzo. They beat the USA comfortably a couple of weeks ago before this tournament began. And also Uruguay under Marcelo Bielsa. I just think that they have... we know Marcelo Bielsa's methods are very intense. He likes, a lot of hard running, a lot of quick kind of counter-attack transition kind of play. And I just think the squad that he has is just absolutely full of players who are physically dominant, who have that desire. I mean, you look at, Darwin Núñez, for example, Valverde, Bentancur Ugarte. They have that kind of just desire built in to win the ball and to play quickly. I think it's looking good. And looking at the way that the tournament is structured, we have Argentina in Group A, and then those 3 teams are in Group B. Let me start again. Looking at the way that the tournament is structured, we have Argentina in Group A, and then we have Uruguay in Group C, and then Brazil and Colombia in Group D. So Argentina really, they, without wanting to tempt fate, they haven't lost a competitive game to anybody on their side of a draw since 2016. They have a real good chance of getting, to the semi-finals at the very least. And then I think the bottom side of a draw is going to be really competitive to see who will probably face them in the final.
Yeah, Renato, I know the rivalry between Brazil and Argentina. Does it hurt a little bit to the Argentina? The Argentines are so good at football right now, in a way that Brazil used to be the team where everyone was like, oh no, we don't want to be playing Brazil right now.
Of course it hurts. Argentina won the last Copa America in Brazil, playing against Brazil in the final in Maracanã.
I know.
What can be like? I don't know. But at the same time, it's beautiful to see Argentina doing what they are doing. In the end, I like South American teams, and I'm not saying that I want Argentina to be so successful, but at the same time, it's nice to see Messi doing all these things in the end of his career. But it hurts a lot. It hurts a lot because Argentinians, like, they're always like this. Brazil has 5 World Cups. Argentina used to have 2. But they were always saying, no, we are better than you. We are better than you. We have more Copa America. We have Maradona. Maradona is better than Pelé. So can you imagine now? That they won the last Copa America? They won the World Cup. It's impossible to talk to Argentinian fan right now. It's impossible. So it hurts a lot. But I agree. Like, I think Uruguay is such an amazing team. I will mention De La Cruz as well. He was the best player in Argentina League last season. Now he's playing for Flamengo in Brazil. Such a good player. And it's nice to see Bielsa back to Copa America after 20 years. He lost the final for Argentina against Brazil in 2004. Now imagine seeing Bielsa winning the Copa America. I would love this. Better than Argentina winning.
Yeah, I think Bielsa has the nickname the crazy one, you know, in Argentina. It translates to that from Spanish. But I think about his personality, Tom, and this Uruguay squad, you know, fiery, you know, always a team that's up for it. Is it a marriage made in heaven?
It definitely looks that way, yeah. I mean, I think Nunez is kind of a really good encapsulation of what this team under Bielsa are all about, because I think he's already scored 8 goals for Uruguay under Bielsa, assisted 2 more. He got a hat-trick against Mexico in the run-up to his tournament, pre-tournament friendly, and his ability to just really streaking behind. He's got pace, he's got physicality, and obviously he can be a little bit inconsistent in front of goal, but the amount of chances that falling his way just because of the way Uruguay play just suits him so well. And I think actually that win against Argentina, they beat Argentina 2-0 in World Cup qualifying. And they had 7 shots in that game. 2 of them were within 10 seconds of the long ball over the top from a defence. The other 5 were within 10 seconds of them winning the ball back themselves. So that kind of shows that when they play these big teams like Argentina, like Brazil, where they're not expecting to have a lot of the ball, they can really sit in, they can win it back, and they can attack quickly. And the fact that they can do that, but they can also overwhelm, you know, teams that they should be beating, shows that I think they have what it takes to go all the way.
Yeah, there's quite a few teams in this Copa America, Tom, very quickly, that are in this sort of transitional phase as well. You know, even Mexico are going through a new sort of birth of new talent and a new style of play as well. And anything on Mexico? They're usually good contenders.
Yeah, Mexico are really interesting because they've just slashed the average age of his squad under Jaime Lozano. I think it's down by 3 years from the World Cup. Obviously, no Guillermo Ochoa, which is a big one because he's just dominated the goalkeeping situation in Mexico for the last 16 years. No Chucky Lozano as well, which is a surprise because he's been playing quite well for PSV Eindhoven. He's you know, he's still quite young as well. No Raul Jimenez. Yeah, no Andres Guardado as well. Just so much experience in that squad has just been completely wiped out. And I think the plan is under Jaime Lozano is that obviously the World Cup in 2026, partly hosted in Mexico, I think they're looking to really integrate these younger players. The most exciting of which Santi Jimenez up front, the striker for Feyenoord, who's just been... I think it's going to be really interesting. I'm not sure if it's going to result in success, but I think the overarching theme is building towards a younger squad that can compete, and maybe some of these familiar faces will come back in at World Cup 2026.
Yeah, as we're talking about young players, Renato, it just got me thinking, you know, ahead of this tournament, we've already seen certain Brazilian players already making transfers to the Premier League. I mean, directly to the Premier League as well. You know, do you expect there'll be more interest naturally following this tournament? You know, it's a good window for Premier League teams to see what's on offer. But also, I guess this is bunking a trend where we'd naturally see Brazilian young players maybe go to somewhere else in Europe, get the experience, and then go to somewhere bigger. Do you think that is changing as well?
I think this is changing, and finally is changing, because we've seen like teams like Porto and Benfica getting so much money doing this, taking young players from South America, not only Brazil, but South America, Falcão Garcia, Enzo Fernandes, and then English teams finally discovered them and played like 4, 5, 6 times more for the same player only 2 seasons or 3 seasons later. So finally, I think English clubs are doing this. And they are doing this so early right now that for me, the two most talented youngsters, they already signed for other clubs. I would say Endrick, not an English club, of course, but for Real Madrid, and Kendry Páez. Kendry Páez is amazing. Only 17 years old, but he's already a Chelsea player. And funny thing is that Endrick and Kendry Páez, they played against each other 2 months ago. Palmeiras played against Independiente del Valle, an amazing match. Both of them scored. So they are so talented. I think it took a while for the English clubs starting doing this, and now I think they will do it more because they already signed a lot of amazing players. Amazing. Luis Guilherme from West Ham, he's such a good player. So I think it's a new reality, and I think they are doing the right thing.
Is it more of an issue with the Premier League not looking that way, or is it that the Brazilian teams have got used to just selling, offloading to Russia, Portugal, as just a natural kind of way of doing business for so many years?
No, I think because we had a lot of cases that like talented players came to England or to Spain, and everybody expected a lot of things and it didn't happen. So I think English clubs in general, they'll say, okay, let them go to another league, see if they can do well there, and then we can buy them. But they will lose money, they will lose time doing this. Of course, it's risky. Of course, it's a different league. Of course, you're talking about Premier League. You know how difficult it is for a South American player to adapt here. But I think it's worth the risky because we have so many talented players. So why not? Why not? And another thing is like, for me, the market here in Europe is so expensive. It's so difficult for you now to take talent from France, from Spain, from other countries here. So it's still cheaper to take people from Brazil, players from Ecuador, from Argentina. So we see like Julian Alvarez now with City. So I think they are doing this more, and I think this is the right way to do.
Okay, fantastic. Thom, I'm going to put you on the spot again because you've reeled through a lot of players in this podcast from various countries in South America. Anyone still sort of pricking your ears that we might need to look at? Because, you know, if you look at the radar, as I've mentioned earlier, we're looking at, you know, 50 players, current, older ones and younger ones through Copa America that could be really interesting to keep an eye on. But I mean, I'm thinking about the USA, you know, anyone shining there? Pulisic for sure, but anyone else that could be really fascinating?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, have to echo what Renato said about Kendry Páez because I'm so excited to see him this summer. And the thing is with Ecuador is that they don't really have a player of his kind of profile. So I think he's going to be straight in there. And I think Ecuador are going to be looking to him for attacking inspiration, even though he's only 17 years old. So I think he's definitely someone to look out for. For the US, yeah, I mean, very interesting. They're kind of in a little bit of a transition period at the moment in terms of the players coming in because, again, they're looking ahead to 2026. They're trying to change up the squad. They're trying to make it a little bit younger. And I think Gio Reyna is probably the standout there in terms of playing this left-sided midfield role. We didn't see him a lot for Nottingham Forest, but he's looked really good in some of the early friendlies. And yeah, I think other than that, the player that I'm looking forward to seeing is Dario Osorio for Chile. There's a lot of excitement around him. He plays for Midtjylland in Denmark, and he scored an amazing goal against France in a friendly before the tournament begins. He scores some unbelievable goals. He's got a left foot who can just, you know, he can hit it from 30, 40 yards. He's really, really kind of tricky on the ball. And I think Chile are definitely a team to look out for as well because they're coming towards the end of their golden generation. Obviously, no Arturo Vidal, no Gary Medel this tournament. Alexis Sanchez and Eduardo Vargas are still around, but they've got some interesting young players coming in. Ricardo Gareca has come in as a manager, and he has done amazing things for Peru and previous Copa Americas. I think they could be really interesting to look out for.
Okay, just finally, from both of you, Renato, I'll start with you on this, and then please, Thom, follow on. You know, how do we feel about this being held in the USA? You know, it's 2 years before the World Cup happens. I mean, 2 major tournaments on US soil. There are a lot of other South American and Central American countries that would be licking their lips to host the Copa America, right, Renato?
Yes, and to be honest, I don't like the idea of this being held in US. As you said, we have so many different countries in South America with more tradition in football that never hosted a big tournament like this. So for me, we could say like Colombia or Ecuador. I know the problem is really like the stadiums. We don't have so many FIFA-like stadiums in these countries, but to be honest, I don't care. I think it's more important you have like full stadiums with people in love with football. It's easier to travel as well, because come on, it's so difficult for you to go from Brazil to US, East Coast and then Coast, and then the other game is West Coast. It's so difficult and so expensive for everyone in South America. So in the end, I think we'll see arenas, stadiums full of people that don't follow football so much. So I don't like the idea, but that's okay. It is what it is. I think it can be a good tournament anyway. So,
but I mean, Tom, you can understand from a country that's really trying to bolster soccer in many respects why we've got two major competitions really almost back to back, really.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it's quite interesting. I mean, I've only been here for a couple of days, but I've spoken to a few people. And the first thing I heard actually coming through passport control was the man in the booth said that he didn't understand why this was being held here. He didn't like it. He wasn't going to watch. So I think there is kind of, a general apathy on one side, but then obviously there are going to be a lot of very interested American, citizens who might go to, some of the games as a neutral, as well as go and watch America around the country. But I think it'll be a real test when, you're looking at some of the games at this tournament. You've got Bolivia versus Panama in Group C. You've got Paraguay versus Costa Rica in Group D. Not to pick on these nations, but they're traditionally smaller. They've got a long way to travel to support their team. I don't know how many Bolivians, for example, are going to be able to make it up. Paraguay's even further away, even more expensive. I think that'll be a real test of kind of the, how interested America is in this tournament. But obviously, it's the Copa America, and the World Cup is a big one in 2 years' time, and perhaps that will kind of inspire more people. But I think I'll be, keeping an eye on the attendance, and seeing how it goes down throughout the tournament.
Yeah, honestly, gents, you've really whetted our appetite for the Copa America. Renato, Tom, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you joining us. If you want to watch more episodes of the show, please subscribe to the channel. We'll be joined by the likes of David Ornstein, Matt Slater, Adam Crafton, Carl Anker, and plenty more through the season. If you'd like to listen to the episodes in full in audio form, search The Athletic FC wherever you get your podcasts from.